Tom Rahel described genre as a negotiation between producers, film and audience. Genre is a set of criteria that categorises a film with specific common features that tie them together in this genre. These set of criteria are called genre conventions. Genre could be seen to have been created to target a film at a particular audience. The genre of a film is an indication to the audience of what the film's going to be like. It attracts an audience and makes them feel safe and secure with the content of the product they have chosen to watch. It's beneficial to filmmakers as it gives them conventions and common plot lines to use if they wish to make a film of a high chance of being commercially successful, and it limits the risks they take on the consumer not liking their product. Genre is therefore a way of genre is therefore a commercial formula in that sense, because if a previous target audience has enjoyed a film, they will want to experience a similar kind of enjoyment, so they'll seek films of that genre. The reasons for genre could stretch simply beyond commercial purposes. As filmmakers or producers may admire the style of a particular genre and produce a similar film out of respect or affection for that genre. Genre changes as society changes over time because genre reflects the change in the audience. Because films operate on supply and demands, audiences' needs will change as society changes, and genre has to keep up with that to sell their films to the current audience. The perspective and ideals of filmmakers may also change as time changes and be influenced by social changes, and filmmakers' techniques will change over time, and new conventions will develop as technology evolves. Christian Metz argued that genre goes through a common cycle in their lifetime that has 4 cycle stages. The experimental stage, where a genre is being created and the groundworks of that genre are being set. The classical stage, where the films of that genre are at their height of their success, and they're very much, that is when they're very much specific. The films are very much in the confines of that genre. The parody stage is where films of a certain genre start to get repetitive, and therefore, may intentionally or inadvertently parody themselves. A parody stage, which is followed by the deconstructive stage, in which a genre starts to dismantle some of its conventions and consequently prepares to lead a genre into another experimental stage, which continues the process of evolving a genre in a genre cycle. Today I'm looking at comedy. Comedy is probably the genre that has experienced the most change through time, but has somehow still stayed pretty much the same. Genre conventions are an essential way of identifying a film as being part of a specific genre. Some common genre conventions are location. This is where a film is set. Sophisticated comedies like Gentlemen Prefer Blondes are usually set in a fancy part of America because the films are normally based around wealth and the class system. Themes, which are the topic that is discussed in the film, and it's often what the narrative is based around. For example, military comedies usually deal with the theme of death and politics. Narrative is the storyline of the film, what is going on. Characters, these are the people that the actors play. The relationships of the characters often contribute to the narrative and the themes. Character dynamic is very important, like a rebellious soldier not agreeing with a dangerous army official in military comedies. Iconography, which is what you see on screen, such as mise-en-scene and costume. Set pieces, these are common features of a film that makes the film identifiable as being a part of a specific genre. For instance, meet cutes are normally in the romantic comedy subgenre. Rural style elements such as non-diegetic and diegetic sound. It's the sounds you hear, whether it be diegetic, whether it be, in the actual narrative, a sound effect of something falling over, someone speaking, or a backing track, a bit of mood music. Visual style elements such as camera work and editing. Iconography is a very important genre convention because it's what the audience sees and it's therefore the audience's first impression of a film, so it's an instant way of telling the audience what genre of film they are seeing. Mise en scène, such as props, take up a vital role of making a genre of a film identifiable to the audience straight away. Costume is also a very important factor in iconography. Costume was clearly used to display character in screwball comedies in the 1930s. In screwball comedies, the poor character wore rags or dirty clothes, and rich characters wore expensive suits or dresses and jewellery to clearly visually represent their social class and economic well-being. This representation of wealth was essential to character in screwball comedies, as the poorer character was often the protagonist, and the richer character took the part of the authority that went against the protagonist, which made him the villain to some extent. The theme of wealth was so important because these films were made during the Great Depression, and so the poorer character will represent much of the target audience. So that the character, that's the character that the audience supported, and will therefore come out on top. So it was therefore essential that that audiences straight away recognised who the protagonist was. These films were made to relate to the audience and provide escapism from their everyday lives by making them feel good by providing an illusion of hope. This is clearly seen in this use of costume can be clearly seen in the scene from My Man Godfrey, which Godfrey Park, the poor character, the protagonist, is wearing dirty clothes and appears unshaven, to contrast with the bourgeoisie guests around him in the party of the ballroom at the Wardour Ritz Hotel. Furthermore, visual style elements such as camera work and editing are also very important contributors to the look of a genre, to the aesthetic of a genre. In the silent comedy era, cinematography was far less advanced than it is now. There was very limited shot variation, and most shots were long shots and long duration shots. Characters walked in and out of the frame, and the camera remained static, like in Charlie Chaplin's The Circus. Whereas in the 1960s, filmmakers like Blake Edwards used more adventurous cinematography to make films more appealing. By this time, colour had been in mainstream American cinema for over 20 years, and audiences' aesthetic expectations of a film had been raised. Films were set in more elaborate locations, so a more adventurous shot selection was used to show this off. In Breakfast at Tiffany's, you can clearly see Blake Edwards using location to mass effect through his use of low-angle wide shots, which allowed him to get as much of the beautiful scenery in the frame as possible. For example, in scenes where Paul is holding Holly's hand as they walk down the streets of Manhattan, you can clearly see a low-angle shot is being used to show as much of the scenery as possible, but to still have Paul and Holly clearly in the frame. Whereas silent comedy films were black and white, and therefore audiences weren't too interested in looking at the dull scenery. Subgenres and hybrid genres can emerge for a genre through accident or experimentation. Subgenres emerge when films of a certain genre are being made with common conventions, such as themes or storylines, that ties them together as a group, but which also separates them from the rest of the films of that genre outside that group, while still submitting to the same conventions of that genre, so therefore creating a genre within a genre. Whereas hybrid genres emerge when films of a certain genre combine conventions of another genre, which categorises the films in a mixture of these two existing genres, therefore creating a hybrid genre.